Today I'm going to be thinking about the idea of shame. And so I'm going to be reading a text called Shame. It's by Dick Gregory. It is a literary nonfiction about Dick Gregory when he was a child and his experience when he went to school and discovered the emotion of shame. So while I'm thinking about this, sorry, I should have shared my screen. While I'm thinking about this, I'm really going to be processing how someone's experience can really exhibit the emotion. So how someone's descriptions can make the reader feel the emotion that they felt. So while I'm reading, I'm going to be inserting comments about my thoughts, and I'm also going to be using a heart symbol anytime the emotions are very strong, anytime I see a description that stands out to me, so that eventually I could use this to write my own piece about an emotion that's been strong for me. So this is Shame by Dick Gregory. The teacher thought I was a troublemaker. All she saw from the front of the room was a little black boy who squirmed in his idiot seat and made noises and poked the kids around him. I guess she couldn't see a kid who made noises because he wanted someone to know he was there. So I do know from other portions of this text that this is a very poor child. He does have a large family, and so he doesn't have a lot. And so this is typical of, to me, this is typical of children in poverty, that sometimes they act out to get attention, especially if they're viewed negatively. And I wonder if he thought about this when he was a kid and knew he was doing this, or if this is just his adult self talking about this. It was on a Thursday, the day before the Negro payday. The eagle always flew on Friday. The teacher was asking each student how much his father would give to the community chest. On Friday night, each kid would get the money from his father, and on Monday, he would bring it to the school. I decided I was going to buy a daddy right then. I had money in my pocket from shining shoes and selling papers, and whatever Helene Tucker pledged for her daddy, I was going to top it and hand the money right in. I wasn't going to wait until Monday to buy me a daddy. So obviously this is not something that is actually possible. You can't really buy a father. But he's really kind of being his own dad. He's working at the age of 7 to shine shoes and sell papers. He's doing this in addition to going to school. So he's really being his own dad. And, you know, that's a status symbol. Helene Tucker is another kid in his class, and she has a daddy. And so there's this negative view of him because he doesn't have one, which of course is not something really that he can control. I was shaking, scared to death. The teacher opened her book and started calling out names alphabetically. Helene Tucker, my daddy said he'd give $2.50. That's very nice, Helene. Very, very nice indeed. So it seems like the teacher likes Helene. Helene might be all of the good things that teachers look for in students. That made me feel pretty good. It wouldn't take too much to top that. I had almost $3 in dimes and quarters in my pocket. I stuck my hand in my pocket and held on to the money, waiting for her to call my name. But the teacher closed her book after she called everybody else in the class. I stood up and raised my hand. What is it now? So already that tone, I'm just picturing that tone right here. You forgot me? She turned toward the blackboard. I don't have time to be playing with you, Richard. My daddy said he'd sit down, Richard. You're disturbing the class. My daddy said he'd give $15. So remember, she said that he said that he was a troublemaker. So I think this has happened before. I think he's not this specific situation, but he's disrupted the class before. It says that he sits in the back of the room, and so that's probably partly because he interferes with the class. So if she puts him in the back, then maybe other kids won't pay attention to him. So I think just from her tone, And I'm going to mark that. Just from her tone, it kind of seems like she's tired of his behavior. She turned around and looked mad. "We are collecting this money for you and your kind, Richard Gregory. If your daddy can give $15, you have no business being unrelieved." So to me, you and your kind, we hear that a lot thinking about race, but this story took place in the 1930s. So this would have been, everybody in this school would have been the same race. Everyone in the school would have been black, even the teacher. And so it's not you and your kind racial, it's you and your kind money, and probably having a complete family. If they had a nuclear family, that might have made a difference. "I got it right now. I got it right now. My daddy gave it to me to turn in today. My daddy said, and furthermore," she said, looking right at me, her nostrils getting big and her lips getting thin and her eyes opening wide. "We know you don't have a daddy." So just to me, that's automatically, and the first time I read this, that's like brings tears to your eyes for her to be quite so angry. But she also, what a description, because I can imagine this teacher's face. And actually, I think when I read this, I can picture my meanest teacher's face. I can picture her making this exact face at me when I asked her to get my marker, my special marker, back from another student who had stolen it out of my cubby, and she wouldn't do it. And I can picture this exact same face, this same look on her face. Helene Tucker turned around, her eyes full of tears. She felt sorry for me. Then I couldn't see her too well because I was crying too. I'm just gonna make this heart even bigger. It just keeps on going. "Sit down, Richard. And I always thought the teacher kind of liked me. She always picked me to wash the blackboard on Friday after school. That was a big thrill. It made me feel important. If I didn't wash it, come Monday, the school might not function right." I get the feeling that this was probably a consequence. The teacher probably didn't view this as something positive at all. "Where are you going, Richard?" "I walked out of school that day, and for a long time, I didn't go back often." There was shame there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and going to highlight every time it says shame in this paragraph. There was shame there. Now there was shame everywhere. It seemed like the whole world had been inside that classroom. Everyone had heard what the teacher had said. Everyone had turned around and felt sorry for me. There was shame in going to the Worthy Boys annual Christmas dinner for you and your kind, because everybody knew what Worthy Boy was. Why couldn't they just call it the Boys annual dinner? Why'd they have to give it a name? There was shame in wearing the brown and orange and white plaid mackinaw the welfare gave to 3,000 boys. Why'd it have to be the same for everybody so when you walked down the street the people could see you on relief? It was a nice warm mackinaw and it had a hood, and my mama beat me and called me a little rat when she found out I stuffed it in the bottom of a pail full of garbage over on Cottage Street. There was shame in running over to Mr. Ben's at the end of the day and asking for his rotten peaches. There was shame in asking Mrs. Simmons for a spoonful of sugar. There was shame in running out to meet the relief truck. I hated that truck full of food for you and your kind. I ran into the house and hid when it came. And then I started to sneak through alleys to take the long way home so the people going into White's Eat Shop wouldn't see me. Yeah, the whole world heard the teacher that day. We all know you don't have a daddy. So this indicates the strength of his emotion because he feels like everyone was part of it, that everyone knows what was going on, everyone's seen it. And then in this paragraph, he uses the word shame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So shame is in here 7 times. So if I'm writing about an emotion that was strong to me, now I can think about how many times when I heard that word shame over and over and over, how it just every time it kind of feels like a little hit to the heart. And so when I write for myself, now I know that the emotion that I'm expressing, I want to keep bringing it back up to the reader. I want the reader to feel it, hear it, see it, because every time they do, they're going to feel like they're part of my story. And there you go. There's Shame by Dick Gregory.